There's work on the farm, there's chores that need to get done. Those of us that have the privilege of working for the men and women across this country that feed this nation, we're getting up every morning to get our chores done, and we sure appreciate the opportunity that we have to help get all of us through this really tough time.
Welcome back to Farmside Chat. I'm your host, American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duvall. On today's episode, we want to focus on the issue that's weighing hard on our hearts and minds across America. That's the pandemic and the COVID-19 virus. The streets and the public meeting places may be quiet, but the work hasn't stopped on our farms out in America. There's a lot of other things that's still having to work in America as we go along. We find out what necessities in our life really are, and one of those necessities is healthcare. And we want to take this time to thank the people that work in the healthcare profession, and the doctors and the first responders have just really went over and beyond to take care of our families and our communities, and we want to say thank you for them. And we also want to say thank you to the food service people. There are people that are out in the truck every day trying to deliver food from the farm to the store and all the processing in between. And they're working overtime to make sure that they get the food to the grocery stores, where our grocery stores and their employees are doing yeoman's work to make sure that those shelves are restocked and full when we get there to buy food for our families. And we are very grateful for their service and their sacrifice during this real difficult time. Then, of course, then you got to talk about the farmers. That food starts on our farms. Our farmers are still out there working each and every day, 24/7, 365 days a year. It's our commitment that we're going to continue to supply food for this country, because we know that the food supply keeps us secure in our country. Health workers, people that's working in the food service area and stocking those shelves, and our farmers out there continue to do what they do each and every day. So today, my guest I have with me is Dale Moore, the Executive Vice President of American Farm Bureau. Dale and I are participating in social distancing. Dale is at her home outside of Washington, D.C., and I'm sitting at my farm, and we're working from home. And we wanted to have this conversation together and talk about all the things that agriculture is facing, and then talk about some good things that's happening too. So welcome, Dale.
Thank you, President Duvall. It is great to be on this Farmside Chat with you today. Been very busy, as you know, going through all the different things this week, learning a new process to doing all of the work that is so important to the men and women we work for all across the country. With technology today, it's kind of like we're virtually in the office, even though we can't quite reach across and either fist bump or hold hands when we're saying prayers, trying to get through some of this.
Well, that's true. And also, the 5 o'clock bell doesn't go off. It's kind of like farming. We're all day and all into the night, and especially because of the crisis that we're into. And of course, we don't mind doing that. If our farmers have a need, we want to work on those issues and try to find solutions for them. So,
yes, sir.
One of those issues that we've dealt with a lot this week, Dale, is the problems around H-2A and the great working relationship we have with this administration, the Secretary of Agriculture and Department of Labor. Why don't you expand on a little bit what's been going on this week?
Well, this is one of those areas where, when Mexico and some of the other countries announced that they were shutting down their consulates, which are a critical part of this process when you're trying to get your workers to come in under the various programs like the H-2A program, you need those consulates working with you to process it, on the other countries' end. And in our case, we also needed our, State Department, our Homeland Security folks working together to make sure that agriculture workers were recognized as critical to this process. So between Secretary Perdue, Secretary Pompeo at State Department, certainly the White House, we've been working very diligently with them, trying to make sure we keep these doors, these gates, if you will, open as wide as possible, to make sure our farmers and our livestock producers have the workers that they need, and not only when they get them here when they need them, but hopefully they don't get tied up in some of the other issues that are tied around this COVID-19 and dealing with, making sure we want them to be safe. We want our families to be safe, but we also need to get these workers so that the food supply is there when we need it in the coming months.
I think this issue's highlighted the issue of farm labor and having migrant workers come here, whether it be seasonal or all year long. And I think it's really rising to the surface. Everybody finding out how important it is. So in the long run, this may help us get to a place to where we might be able to find a solution to our problem. But right firsthand, I've been real encouraged about the working relationship with the administration. I understand that, you hear the president talk about tearing down some of the red tape, cutting some of the red tape. And I think most of that discussion is around creating a vaccine and other things around healthcare. But they're also doing that around H2A too, because, we hear that some of the contract workers that are here now that are going to run out in the next 45 days, they might let them renew another contract without touching back to their home country and be able to stay here and work on other farms and do that work.
That would be amazing. It's, between the administration, we know we're getting a lot of help from folks up on Capitol Hill on both sides of the aisle, and kind of a bipartisan taking a look at how we help solve these issues. We've got state departments of agriculture weighing in and helping us on this battle, and even some governor's offices kind of raising the concern. So one of the things, again, this is where our grassroots members letting us know what they're running into, letting you know what they're facing on their state level, helps us make sure that we're getting that information in, so that all of these connections that have developed just to deal with this particular issue, we get to take advantage of your close relationship with Secretary Perdue and the other relationships we've got within the administration, but also on Capitol Hill.
That's exactly right. And, people say, well, you're working from home. Are you really being able to take care of our problems? I've been on the phone with the secretary several times this week with stakeholders across the country, bringing us up to date on the things that he's doing to try to fix this and many other problems. And then you and I have had all our State Farm Bureau national affairs people and some of our state presidents join us twice this week, and we're trying to fill them in on what's going on, and also provide a set of ears for them so that we can hear what's going on the ground with our grassroots, because we are a grassroots organization, and it helps us make sure that we can react to the problems that they're facing each and every day. Those conversations have been very helpful, and I know this helped us guide our conversation and guide us in a direction of who we talk to each and every day. Transportation is one of those issues that we are concerned about. I don't think anything's been stopped yet, but being able to cut the red tape, go past the operating hours, maybe truck waits. Can you fill our listeners in on some of the things that we've talked about in that arena?
This is an issue, and I know you had raised this with Secretary Perdue, and one of the things the Secretary pointed out, and we're all very familiar with this, or most folks are familiar with the fact that in our country, the states have a lot more control over truck weights, what can go through their respective states, and they don't particularly like the federal government weighing in on that. But we've seen a number of the state governors, on the East Coast and the West Coast talk about, taking the limits off of those truck weights, or at least that would be helpful. We've also heard that they're also backing up to make sure that in some kind of form or fashion that truckers, when they're going through particular areas, particularly if they're curfew areas, because there have been some curfew areas established to help stop the spread, to make sure that law enforcement recognizes that if individuals delivering food, that is an exception to these rules. Now, again, there's a lot of work and you and other leaders in this process, we're having those conversations with the governor's office, with the state departments of agriculture, to help us get that message across. But so far, we've not heard of major issues on the transportation front. But it is a very real possibility, particularly as we continue to see the number of cases grow. So getting ahead of this curve now is going to be very important as we kind of head deeper into making sure that the food supplies are getting to where they need, as well as those important materials that our farmers and ranchers and livestock producers need to get back to the farm so they can continue doing their jobs.
Right, that's exactly right. And I heard the secretary on the last call for people out in the states to call the commissioners, call the governors, and let them know the things that the states control. Get them to cut some of that red tape so that we can continue to move product around. We don't need an interruption of the system itself. I went to the grocery store once since I've been home, and I got there and there was no meat, there was no bread, there was no eggs, and it was kind of spooky looking. It was kind of strange to walk in a grocery store when the shelves wasn't just so full like we're used to here.
Yes, sir. I would tell you that's one thing, and same thing, as we've gone to the store to pick up things, I was fascinated going down, just like the canned vegetable aisle, you can find all the Brussels sprouts you want. But it's a little hard to find some of the, the peas and the corn and the green beans.
There's only a few of us that like Brussels sprouts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, it took a long time for this old country boy to like them, but I like them now. Just think they're little cabbages, that's all.
The little cabbages, put a little balsamic vinegar on there, and you got a tasty meal.
So, we as farmers, we know that there's tremendous amount of food out there being processed on its way to the stores. But when someone has been removed from farming and never had anything to do with it, and they walk in that grocery store and the shelves not full, I'm sure it's really, really scary to them. So what can you and I say to make them feel better about the supply?
Well, I think, one of the things that we've heard and certainly talk about, I've visited with folks, is that, there's not a shortage of food. Folks have, so I've heard folks say, folks have changed their buying patterns, and for whatever reason, this crisis comes on. So things like toilet paper, bread, eggs, milk, folks buy that up and stock it in the refrigerator, probably beyond what they can consume before those perishables start to go down. So that's one of those things that sharing with folks, that there is food out there that agriculture, farmers and ranchers, our partners in the agriculture industry, particularly in the food sector, everybody's working together to get more food to the markets. This kind of hit everybody all at once. There's, I say this carefully, probably a little panic buying, if you will, and buying all this stuff up. But I've noticed that some of the grocery chains, have, to be mindful of older customers, providing special times, opening the doors a little early for them, putting limits on what folks can buy. And I think, before too long, we'll see this sort of balancing back out. Those grocery store shelves may not be fully stocked, but I don't think it will look like there's been a run on kind of the end of the earth kind of thing going on, but just catching up a bit and getting the shelves back to where you don't have to look and take that last box of Raisin Bran when you'd much prefer the Captain Crunch or something like that.
That's right. And this experience, or this time in the history of our country, it's not the first time we felt something like this. I don't know that I remember a pandemic in my life. I mean, I was probably young, but we also see kind of the America you see during a war, or the America you see after 9/11, where everybody comes together and starts doing the right thing, and it becomes part of their everyday life, trying to serve their community and give back to the people around them and take care of their friends and neighbors, when in regular life we're too busy to do that. So I see a lot of that good feeling stuff going on around America. Just like next door here in my county, in Morgan County, the Morgan County Farm Bureau Women's Committee packed lunches for the school kids that couldn't go to school, and was
that's awesome.
Out the kids that weren't up going to school today to get lunch. So, and you see those kind of things happening. Did you get to talk to the Eight Oaks distillery farmer?
It was great to hear them. The Eight Oaks Distillery folks, which is a farm and spirits company up in Pennsylvania. They had heard about concerns in their local community about shortages of hand sanitizer and things related like that. And so they made the decision to basically shut down their distillation process and switch it over to making this hand sanitizer, because some of the ingredients that go into their whiskeys and their other spirits are the same alcohol content that they need for these hand sanitizers. So when they did that and word got out, they've just been overwhelmed by the nationwide response from healthcare providers, from first responders all over the country, wanting to work with them to get more of this supply, because there's been such a run on hand sanitizers and other sort of the personal sanitizer types of products. And I think it speaks well to, how men and women step up, how the men and women you and I work for step up to the plate. Time tough.
Yeah, and that distillery, I think, is in Pennsylvania.
Yes, sir.
We were able to have him on a call earlier today with a lot of reporters across the country. And probably just those two examples, just tip of the iceberg of good things that's going on across America, while our farmers are still out in the field working hard. We're trying to do our best to make sure that the people of America know that our farmers are still out there working every day, and they're not going to stop. They're going to do the best they can to provide the food that we've always provided. And, I think a good way for us to tell that story is through social media. So we're challenging all our farmers across America to use #StillFarming and share some of the work that's going on their farm, so that people can see on social media that farmers are still in the field with the cows, and they're still plowing and preparing the land, and they're still walking the chicken houses and taking care of the animals each and every day, so that they'll end up in the market where people can enjoy them. This is just a really good way for us old farmers to tell our story, because people's got a lot of time right now to get on social media. Are you a social media person, Dale?
Well, I think this pandemic is going to teach me to become one. I kind of struggle with that. I figured I used to laugh by the time I got the hashtag and just introducing myself, I pretty much hit the limit on how many characters I could use. But I think we're going to, with the great team that we've got on the communications front, I'm assuming that my skill sets are going to have to get a whole lot better while we're working in this kind of work from home mode.
Well, there's no doubt that this is tough times in America, but I know that we all are stronger when we work together. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the stories across America of how neighbors are helping neighbors, farmer neighbors are helping farmer neighbors, making sure that we get all the work done, because we know some of the labor won't show up. Hopefully we can get most of it here and get it done. But all America is in this together, and it really truly does feel like that same feeling that we had after 9/11, because we're losing friends and neighbors to the virus across America. It's a sad time, but it also makes the best of America come out. So we're just proud of seeing American agriculture come together with our country and with our communities, protecting our families, and doing the right thing by trying to be socially distanced from other people, but to carry on our work each and every day so we don't interrupt the system. So Dale, you got anything else you want to add?
Well, I keep remembering what I learned from my granddad a long time ago. He talked about how the rules of the farm operate, and I can remember, I think, for most of the years of my growing up, I'd hear the back door open, hear the coffee pot start, and then hear Granddad holler up the stairs. It's like, boys, I'm trying to enjoy my coffee, and these cows and sheep and horses are making too much noise for me to enjoy it. And just like you said, every day there's work on the farm, there's chores that need to get done. Those of us that have the privilege of working for the men and women across this country that feed this nation, we're getting up every morning to get our chores done, and we sure appreciate the opportunity that we have to help get all of us through this really tough time.
Well, Dale Moore, Executive Vice President of American Farm Bureau, great partner of mine. I enjoy working with him. He and I got some of the best people in the world to work with. Our farmers should be able to sleep good at night, knowing that we're doing everything we can to find answers to our questions and smooth out the challenges that are in front of agriculture. We do that each and every day, but this pandemic has put a whole different perspective on things, and we're focusing on what's important to the people we serve and taking care of our families at the same time. Thank you for joining us today. This is Zippy Duvall and Dale Moore at American Farm Bureau. We appreciate you joining us on the Farmside Chat, and we hope that you'll join us again real soon. God bless you.